Alrighty, we are back with insider betting. We got UFC 312 going on this weekend. We got 2 championship fights on the main card, and then we have 3 unranked fights on the main card as well. A lot of heat in the co-main and main events. Not a lot of heat in the rest of them, but there are some good fights on the card. I'll give you that. First things first, Jesse, how we doing, brother?
Good. Yeah, this card is it's
Brutal.
a doozy for a pay-per-view. The final 2 fights are like 2 of the biggest fights, that you can make right now, especially in women's MMA. It's probably the biggest fight you can make in women's MMA right now. But but the fights leading up to the co-main and the main event are, I mean, they might not crack the prelims on an Apex card, but let's talk about it.
We'll talk about it. Before we get into the main card, because, as always, we don't cover the prelims, especially on a card like this, because none of you guys are going to watch it anyway. But we got Aleksandre Topuria taking on Colby Thicknesse. I don't really know how to pronounce his name. I'm just going to go by Colby Thick. But it's very interesting because Aleksandre Topuria, very obviously, Ilia Topuria's brother. He's actually the older brother, and it's funny. I was in Philly not that long ago for BKFC, and on my flight back, I was actually watching like an Ilia Topuria like come up video on YouTube. It was like a 30-minute video, and it was actually pretty interesting. Aleksandre Topuria is the reason Ilia Topuria is so good. He was the dominant fighter. He was like he's the big brother. The big brother is always the one that kind of paves the way. And he actually got injured very early on in his career and stopped fighting. So he's only got, I think, 5 or 6 professional fights. And that's kind of when he stepped aside and became Ilia's head coach and Ilia's, I think, primary training partner as well. Where Colby Thicknesse, on the other hand, he's also part of Alex Volkanovski's training camp. And I believe he's his I don't think he's his head coach, but I think he's his primary training partner. So when he spars and stuff like that, Colby's the main guy. So funny enough, I know Volk Ilia is rumored for UFC Miami, UFC 314, but they're both going to be in their significant others' corners, I guess we should say.
There might be a better way of phrasing that. They'll be in the other, significant other. This sounds like they're dating, but yeah.
Well, in the MMA world, when you're beating each other up, you're basically dating at that point. I give it to them.
I get what you're saying. They'll beat each other.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they're going to be the cornermen. So they're both going to be at the fight. They're going to be there for the prelims. I think it's one of the opening fights for the night. I think it might be the opening prelim of the night, which I don't know if there's the early prelims for this.
It opens the second set of prelims. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So anyways, it's going to be a very interesting fight. I don't really have much of like a breakdown besides like this fight will be worth watching because these guys are MMA vets, even though they're younger. Like I think Colby's only 25. But the amount of experience they've gained just through being in the corners of Volk and Ilia respectively it should be an interesting fight, I think. And Ilia is always referred to Alex. I don't know if he goes by Alex or Alexander, but he's always been very hyped up in the sense of like Ilia has always said, my brother is better than me. You know, he just didn't get the opportunities that I got, and that's why he's in my corner and not in my spot.
It's actually like perfect matchmaking by the UFC because both guys making the UFC debut, obviously, and it's going to be like it's a barometer fight for both guys. Like you're going to find out like which one of these guys belongs in the UFC and which one doesn't. Weird. The thing about I'm looking at his Sherdog page right now, and I think it's Aleksandre, by the way, Aleksandre Topuria.
You're right.
He fought in like 2015 and then didn't fight until 2021. He took like a 6-year break.
That was his injury.
Yeah. So 6 years off. And obviously like his brother, like you mentioned, a lot of his time was spent with like his brother Ilia. But I mean, since he's come back, a lot of decision fights, but since coming back, I'm on Colby Thicknesse's page here. Since coming back, all of his fights have ended by TKO, and his last 3 have been first-round finishes.
Yeah. So he's apparently really, really solid.
Yeah. So there's definitely talent here. The question is, with Ilia talking about his brother, like the second coming or something. He could just be hyping up his brother. But no, this would be best case scenario for the UFC if the Topuria brothers become like a little royal family of MMA. But I mean, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea how to pick the fight, how to rank the fight.
No.
I just think more than anything, it's such an incredible storyline that it's like Volk's guy versus Topuria's guy. And then you might have the title fight, the rematch in April. I think it's just incredible matchmaking. I guess my mind leans to Topuria on this just because I feel like he's going to I just feel like there's going to be like more of like a wrestling jiu-jitsu base, but I could be totally off. I have no idea. I have no basis for that, but I'll say Topuria just because, but I'm not betting on it. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I agree with that mentality. What weight class is this fight in?
I think it's bantamweight. So he's one weight class below Ilia.
Very cool. Very cool. That's what I wanted to confirm. That's what I thought. So yeah, if the Topuria brothers, double champ status.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is that he wants to move up to 145 once Ilia moves up to 155.
That would make sense.
So they would never.
They got similar build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
But anyway, we'll get into the main card right over here. But before we do, we have a special message from our friends of DraftKings.
We'll be right back to the video, fight fans. But first, big announcement because UFC 312 is coming up this weekend in Sydney, Australia. We're going down under for some Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis, a rematch for the UFC middleweight title. And Inside Fighting has partnered up with our friends over at DraftKings to get you guys closer to all the action. And right now, new DraftKings customers who go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app can bet $5 and receive $200 of bonus bets instantly if you sign up using our promo code INSIDEFIGHTING. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets of DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game and get in on the action that way. If you love the thrill of live betting, DraftKings has you covered with live markets like Fight to Go the Distance, making watching fights that much more exciting. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry about it. Just go play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports. Get in on all the action there. Again, in honor of UFC 312, new DraftKings customers who go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app can bet $5 and receive $200 of bonus bets instantly using our promo code INSIDEFIGHTING.
All right, and we're back.
And it's weird. It's weird doing those ad reads because we have the Super Bowl coming up this weekend too. So I figured we'd be doing this for the Super Bowl. But UFC 312, we're a fighting channel, so we had to do it. But there's the good thing about those bets is you can use them for if you're betting on the Super Bowl, you can use that stuff on Super Bowl bets too. So it's perfect. It's a perfect transition.
The Super Bowl is the most fun time to bet too.
Yeah. Do you got a winner? Have you picked anything yet?
I feel like if you pick against the Chiefs, it's just a bad pick. But I would love for the Eagles to win personally.
Yeah, it's in America. It's one of the most hated matchups ever. Everybody, if you don't live in Philly or Kansas City, everybody's mad about this Super Bowl. It's so funny.
I saw that. I don't understand why. I understand why you don't want the Chiefs there, but what's the hate to the Eagles?
I think it's just the city of Philadelphia in general just kind of gets some heat. I know you were just there, so you probably like it a little bit, but it's I think it's just people don't like the tush push. That's a famous play that the Eagles do. They run this play called tush push, and people hate it. And so there's some of that there. There's just I don't know. There's they're just kind of two of the more unlikable teams for some reason.
Interesting. So. I'm a big story guy, and I think there's I always try to go towards who winning this would create a better storyline potentially down the road, right? So you got the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes wins. This is his 4th Super Bowl, 3rd in a row. He's still under 30, I think. So now there's an argument that he's going to catch up to Brady, for example. So I think that's a sick storyline. But on the other end, if the Eagles win, Saquon Barkley winning a Super Bowl in his first season as an Eagle versus being a Giant, I think is absolutely nuts. And with the season he's had as well, because there's been this stigma in the NFL where running backs are losing their value, and Saquon's kind of no, I'm here,
Well, he proved that it's all about the team you build around a player too, because he was with the Giants and he never had a season like that on the Giants, and now that he's just been unleashed, that there's a video of that. We're gonna move on in a second, but there's a video of the Giants GM. I'm sure you've seen it, where he's like, he's calling Saquon, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna let you go. We're gonna let you test the market." And then his like one of his like assistants is like, "Hey, are you sure we should be doing this?" You know, and it's gone viral over the past year since Saquon's had the seasons that he's had. And it's like the fact that they filmed that and allowed themselves to be on camera and making that decision is like a fireable offense. The Giants have all the hate coming to them that they deserve. So
yeah, there was another video that came with the Giants where like their GM's son was like in the office with him. And then he was like, who should we, like, he asked his son, like, who should we draft, like, in the first? And then,
asking his son, I love that. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, and his son said Jaden Daniels, who made it to the conference finals this year with the Commanders.
Wow. And they gave
the Giants.
They gave like 250, the biggest contract ever, to Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and then cut him. Like,
yeah,
nuts.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but anyway,
at least they didn't trade Luka Doncic. But anyways, move on.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. I'm a fan of that trade personally, but it's interesting.
Oh, you are? Okay, well, we'll have to start another podcast then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, opening up the main card, we got Jake Matthews taking on Francisco Prado. I mentioned it on the show before, but I'm part Argentinian, so whenever we got an Argentinian guy, I'm very heavy for him. So this one, I'm picking with my heart here, but it was a hard pick with my heart because when I looked at these stats, I go, damn, Jake Matthews does everything better, and then Francisco Prado lands more strikes, but he gets hit more than he lands, which is very Argentinian of him, you know?
Yeah.
If we look at like Santiago Ponzinibbio, if we look at even like Esteban Ribovic, a lot of these guys, and this is just kind of like Argentinian guys in general, they got a lot of dog in them, and they're going to give you a great fight. And I think he's going to come out hot. He's got a 100% finish rate in his wins. Francisco Prado, he's got 6 knockouts, 6 submissions in 12 wins. He's got 2 losses on his record, both in the UFC, both by decision. This is his 4th fight in the UFC. He's only 1-2, so he's gotten 2 losses. Before that, he was undefeated. He was 11-0 coming into the UFC, but he's still a young dude. He's only 22 years old. He's gaining his experience. I'm not that high on Jake Matthews either. Like he's much more of a vet. He's beat and he's lost to much higher caliber fighters than Prado. But I think coming into this fight, Prado has everything to win and nothing to lose. And so he's just going to come out super hot. The only way I see Jake Matthews winning is if Prado gasses out by going too hard. And this fight going to decision and then Prado losing by decision. So, that's kind of my analysis here. I know I was kind of all over the place and just kind of talking about Prado, but I'm pretty high on him being the underdog. And I think he can get the win here, surprisingly.
Yeah, I'm just astonished that this fight is kicking off a pay-per-view. This is wild to me that this fight's kicking off a pay-per-view. But
this is like an opening prelim fight. Like this is like the equivalent of Aleksandre Topuria versus Colby Thick.
Something went wrong with the matchmaking here, where they like overstocked UFC at 311 or something like that. Or nobody wants to fly to Australia. That might be what's going on here. Like
I think that's a part of it. You want to know what I think the biggest part of it is? The fighters get taxed based on where they're fighting.
Yeah.
And Australia, very similar to Canada, where I'm from, has like insane income tax policies. And so I think when you fight in Australia, you just make less money, so it's less worth it.
Yeah, so that means Strickland and Du Plessis are getting paid like a little kicker for how much tax they're gonna take.
Totally. I assume so, at least.
Yeah. So I mean, look, Matthews has obviously faced better opponents. Like he just beat Philip Rowe. That's a good win. Went 3 rounds with Michael Morales, you know, who could be fighting for a title in the next year and a half. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of like going with the young guy kicking off pay-per-view. He's going to be juiced up. It's probably his first time on a pay-per-view. I could see him being kind of motivated and exciting here. That's where I was trying to remember where I recognized him from. He lost to Daniel Selhuber, and that's okay. No, I like what you're saying here, just because like Jake Matthews 3-3 in his last 3. He's kind of like not a gatekeeper, but he's just kind of treading water in this division. And I like Francisco Prado's body type, so I'll go with him on this. At plus 185, I like the odds.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like the Argentinian guys never look attractive on paper. Like they're always you always think they're gonna lose. Like you even like let's talk about Daniel Zellhuber for a second. People were like, I was there for UFC 306 and at the Sphere. Everyone was super high on him. Everyone said he was gonna like demolish Esteban Ribovic. And on paper, it makes a ton of sense. It makes sense for them to be plus 200 underdogs for these Argentinian guys. But like what you don't measure is heart, and like these Argentinian guys like got a lot of it. And you saw it in Esteban Ribovic versus Daniel Zellhuber. You even, I think, saw it a little bit when Zellhuber fought Prado here. Like they went the full 3 rounds and it went to decision.
And it doesn't. I don't think Jake's gonna try like a ton of takedowns. I do think that's where his advantage is gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
But this could just be like an example. Like these stats could just be an example of a guy too young to really judge a book by its cover quite yet.
Exactly.
I'll go with Prado just because I like the odds and just because like I'm kind of with you. I'm not like I don't know. I'm not a huge Jake Matthews fan.
Yeah.
And it's no knock on him. I'm just not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyway, we'll go on to the next fight here. We got Jimmy Crute taking on Rodolfo Bellato. I don't know how you pronounce it. But that's okay. This show is not about pronunciations.
Yeah.
Jimmy Crute's coming out of retirement, which I thought was pretty wild because he's only 28 years old. And I don't think he's doing it for any reason besides that he wants to fight in front of Australian crowd, being from Australia. I don't think that he's like, oh, like I took 2 years off, or I actually don't know how long he took off, but I took this amount of time off. I'm coming back a better fighter. I don't think that's the mentality at all. I think it's, I get to fight in front of my like fans, give it one last shot. If I win, maybe I'll do another one. But if I lose, I'll probably retire again, With that being said, I don't know, man. I don't want to touch this fight because like when I look at Jimmy Crute, when I look at both of these guys, I'm like, Rodolfo looks better on paper. He's got a bit of a reach advantage. He's got a bit of a height advantage. He's still kind of like on the come up in the sense of like, even though he's older, he hasn't really fought a lot, right? He's only 12-2. So he's still got a long career ahead of him in his eyes. So he's got a lot to win here, where Jimmy's, I don't know how much how hungry he's coming into this fight, I think that, and what makes it difficult is like, although on paper Rodolfo looks better, when you look at Jimmy Crute's fights, like before he retired, is he lost 3 of his last 5. He's got a draw in there and he's got a win in there. His wins are like, he's got a win over Michael Oleksiejczuk, which is like a pretty decent one. But then the other guy's like Modestas, which I don't know who that is.
Modestas Bukauskas, we just interviewed him. We posted it yesterday. Modesta, Michael.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, Modestas. I'm not talking shit if you're watching this.
No, you're good. You're good.
But when I look at Jimmy Crute's losses, it's against Alonzo Menifield, Jamal Hill, and Anthony Smith. So like obviously he's fought a lot of like very high level talent. So like that gave him some bonus points. But being retired, I just don't know how he's going to come back. So am I betting on this fight? 100% not. If I were to bet, would I bet Jimmy Crute? The answer is no. Therefore, I'm going Rodolfo.
Yeah. I mean, if you go look at his Sherdog, like his last 4 fights, it makes sense why Jimmy Crute retired. I mean, one of the more brutal knockouts you'll see is when he got knocked out by Jamal Hill during Jamal Hill's rise to becoming a title contender. He knocked out Jimmy Crute bad, and then but during that time, he got first round TKO'd by Anthony Smith, second round submitted by Alonzo Menifield, which was a rematch of a fight where they had a draw. But, before that, he was on a nice little run. But it seems like he was just kind of getting finished, and like maybe his chin is gone is kind of what I'm worried about here. And when your chin goes at a young age, that's not good. He's going to have to get some takedowns here. Obviously, he has a massive takedown advantage based on these stats, and Rodolfo has some good takedown defense, 100%. Wow. But it also is based on, I think it's just based on his UFC stats, which is one fight.
This is fully on UFC stats, correct?
Yeah, so it's one fight. So obviously that's not much to go off.
It's not accurate, no.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the odds enough on Bellato here to take them, just because I think Crute's chin is fried.
Is done.
I don't know. Maybe he has some extra juice fighting at home. I wouldn't be mad at a Jimmy Crute comeback, but I didn't even realize that that's why he'd be coming out of retirement. That makes a lot of sense to me. So that's not.
I don't know. I'm no expert here. I'm just going on a limb, you know. But I don't think you retire at 26 and then come back thinking you're better. You know?
No. Anytime a guy retires young and then makes a comeback, I'm always a little skeptical about that.
Yeah, it's either you need the money or it's a cool opportunity.
Yeah. So I would go with Bellato. Like, Bellato might just be hungrier at this point.
Yeah. Dude, I feel like my face is so bright. I'm like trying to turn down this light, but nothing's happening.
Oh, weird.
No,
it's fine.
I'm tanner in person, guys. I swear.
Okay.
We got our feature fight of the night. Justin Tafa taking Tallison Teixeira. And I tried making it look like Tallison is a lot bigger than Tafa here, because he is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's 6'7" going up against 6 foot. He's 83 reach versus 74-inch reach. So that's what, like a 9-inch reach advantage, 7-inch height advantage. It's cool. You look at these stats and you're like, holy fuck, this guy hits a lot and gets hit a lot. It's only from his Contender Series debut. So that's where those stats came from. So don't take it too hard. It's going to be an interesting fight, because what I see happening here is there's not a lot of guys who hit as hard as Justin Tafa. He's 7 wins, 7 knockouts. When he clips you hard. The question is, can he reach all the way up here with the same power? I think what we've seen is, when you look at his losses against like Carl Williams, for example, I don't remember exactly how many times he was taken down, but like takedowns were a part of that. He was taken down 7 times in that fight, you know. That's how he loses for the most part, is somebody who can out-grapple him, or someone who just, I really think it's just somebody who takes him down and keeps him on the ground is how he loses for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't like if I'm Tallison, I'm coming into this fight and I'm saying I'm going to keep a little bit of a reach. I'm just going to try to stay on the outside a little bit and kind of work my way in when I can, but I'm keeping a distance because I don't want to get hit by Tafa. I think what Tafa is going to do is going to say, I don't give a shit. I'm going to be right up. I'm going to be all up in there, you know, and I'm just going to be swinging. So I think we're probably going to see like an early knockout here. I don't see this fight going to decision. Although Tafa's losses do tend to come by decision for the most part. And sorry, you look like you're like ready to say something.
No, good. I was going to follow up with what you were going to say.
Yeah, no, and like I think he's got an incredible leg kick, which I think helps when you're fighting against someone taller. You know, you got a little bit more reach that way. I think Tafa is going to be all over him. I'm going for a Tafa knockout. I don't think Tallison's going to be enough. I think his Contender Series debut looked good. I think everybody's hyped up about him because he's so tall and because he's so big. But I think it might not play into as big of a favor against a guy like Justin Tafa. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, the odds of this fight going past the first round are very low, considering Tallison Teixeira has 7 professional fights. All 7 of them have ended in the first round by submission, by either a knockout or a submission. Mm-hmm. He's 7-0, 7 finishes, all first round. And Justin Tafa swings for the fences in every fight that he's in. This fight is either going to disappoint the hell out of you or is ending in the first round. That's sort of I would actually consider a little bet on I wonder what DraftKings has that listed as like a little first round finish. I will say it just seems like Tallison is a little dangerous here. Obviously I know none of his opponents. I don't know who he's beat. Don't know any of these names. Yeah. Whereas Justin Tafa, you know, he's beat Austin Lane, he's beat Parker Porter. He's had some good wins here, but he is 7-4, and you know he has struggled a little bit. Some of these Samoan guys, these like stand and bang guys, they struggle a little bit with grappling. So it just depends on how much grappling Teixeira implements. I'm going to take Teixeira just because I'll take the hype. I think that he's it seems to me like he's got a clear range advantage on this fight.
Yeah.
Tafa's got a power advantage.
Winning round being round 1 is a -110 right now, just for the fight to end in the first.
Is it what?
-110.
Okay, so they're all over that. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
if you'd rather take that than pick a winner, I wouldn't fault you for it. But
yeah.
But yeah, I like Teixeira, and I would consider a little first round knockout sprinkle.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Real quick, I'm gonna backtrack here. I just went while pulling up the odds for the first round win here. I saw the odds for Topuria versus Thick. Topuria is a -380 favorite.
Oh, he is? Okay.
He's almost a 4-1 favorite, so it's a good pick there by us.
By the way, oh, you know what? I'll bring it up when we get to the main fight. Never mind. A little bit of news just popped up.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's do co-main event then. Yeah. So we can get going quicker. We got Weili Zhang taking on Tatiana Suarez. This seems to be like Weili's annual fight at this point. Tatiana is on a 10-fight win streak. She's 10-0. She takes a lot of time off. She gets hurt a lot. So that's kind of been her downfall in a sense, but she's really, really fucking good. Weili opened as a -250 favorite, bro. How nuts is that? She's +100 right now. So she's the underdog. And I think it's probably because a lot of bets are going to Tatiana. I think it's important to note that Tatiana has wins over 3 champions. So even though she's only got 10 fights, she's got really good experience. She's beaten Carla Esparza. She's beaten Alexa Grasso, even though it was like very, very early on in Alexa's career. And she tends to struggle with grapplers anyway. We just saw her lose her belt at 306 to Shevchenko because of her grappling. And then she beat Jessica Andrade, but like past her prime. Still 3 wins over champions. Very impressive. I don't really want to like pick a fighter here because I don't typically like going with like fighters like Tatiana who are like these heavy grapplers and like just can like keep you on the ground and like that's all they do, or she'll like have her pinned up against the cage and like the fight's not going anywhere. I think what Weili brings to the table is like she's probably the most athletic like female fighter in the UFC. And she's so well-rounded and she's been in so many dog fights and she's seen it all. You know, she's only lost 3 times in her career, and 2 of those losses against are against Rose Namajunas. The other loss is her debut. You know, so like, and sorry, when I say her debut, I mean her professional debut, not her UFC debut.
Right.
So very long ago. So she's really like, no one's really been able to crack like the Weili code here, and I just like don't know if I want to put my eggs on Tatiana, you know, to do that. I typically like going with the better, well-rounded fighter. I think that she's going to be able to throw a lot of strikes into the mix. I think that she is maybe not going to be able to like withstand all the grappling, but I think she's going to be able to like play around a little bit, you know. She still averages 2.5 takedowns like per fight. Like that's pretty solid. Sure, her takedown defense is only 50%. So like that might be a struggle considering that Tatiana is a 61%, but like I'm just not that high on Tatiana. I don't know. I think that when you have like a really well-rounded fighter who's like not bad on the ground, like that's the important thing to note is that like Tatiana is just elite, you know, but Weili is not bad, right? It's not like Justin Tafa that we just talked about, that every time he goes against anyone who can fight him on the ground, he loses because he's got 0 ground game. You know, Weili Zhang's not like that. So just because of that, I'm personally picking Weili Zhang, even though I can like very much see this being the end of her like title run and having to work back up as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same thing about the odds, that the odds were like, it was like -200 or whatever you said for Weili. And then now we're even basically because all the money's coming in on Tatiana. And I just got to be honest, it should be, because the -200 I thought was insane for Weili, like because Tatiana Suarez is like, she's been compared as like the female Khabib. Like she's basically been almost one of those fighters. It's like she's like the crowned champ. She's like Hamzat, where it's like everybody just assumes they are the champion one day. It's just they haven't gotten that title shot yet.
Yeah.
And with all due respect to Weili Zhang, who might be like one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, she is amazing. She's amazing. I think Tatiana Suarez is like a phenom that's gonna she's going to be champion. I think this is like kind of where it starts. I love Weili. It's a huge test for Tatiana, obviously. Tatiana has an incredible story. If people don't know, she was an Olympic wrestler. She was like one of the most dominant in the world. And then she got thyroid cancer and a disc in her neck. And then she ended up basically having to like pull out of competition. And that's how she sort of like created her MMA career. So she's had a career that's been sort of like derailed by injuries over and over and over again. But every time she performs, she's the best fighter in the world. And it's just a matter of like, can she stay on the floor? And I think Weili is like the most well-rounded women's fighter. And I think she's going to have a lot of trouble with Tatiana's wrestling and just her physicality and relentlessness, a little bit like Merab. She's just not, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if like Tatiana wins by submission here. And in fact, I'd probably bet that. And I've just been wanting to see Tatiana Suarez fight for a title for like 2 years now. And I can't back out of that feeling now just because I like Weili Zhang. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I feel you.
I think it's Tatiana Suarez's time. And I think Weili Zhang is one of the best women's fighters to ever live. You know, it's one of those things where it just has to come to an end at some point. And I think the time is now. And Tatiana's 34, man. It has to happen. You know what I mean? Like it has to happen now. I think she's ready to go. But man, it's a tough fight to call. I understand it, but I do feel pretty comfortable with Tatiana here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
No, I like your pick. I'm all over that as well. You know, it's a tough one to pick for sure. Main event. Do you want me to give my breakdown? You want to give your breaking news first?
Oh yeah, no. Just Dricus Du Plessis just posted a photo of Sean Strickland with a little spot on his arm, implying that he might have a staph infection. So we'll just have to monitor that. I don't know if there's any seriousness to it or not, but yeah, that's starting to make the round. So I'm gonna have to make a post about that when we get off.
Nice. Well, we'll wrap this up quick so you can make that post.
Yeah. No, well, it's fine, but it could be nothing. You know, it could just be something that he's already dealt with. You know.
Yeah.
Could
very
affect his
interesting
performance.
What this is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, spoiler alert. I'm picking DDP anyway, so this kind of helps me, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
But this fight's a rematch. DDP got the better of Strickland in their first fight. That was not too long ago. It was at 297, I think, in Toronto.
Yep.
It was a pretty solid fight. Like I enjoyed watching it. I don't know if people thought it was boring, but I thought it was a pretty big banger. I don't know. What was general consensus? I don't remember. Did people think it was boring?
I think no, it was a good fight. I think at the time Strickland was really like at the height of his popularity. And a lot of people felt like Strickland got robbed in the decision, especially being a champion, split decision win.
You're right. That's what it was.
You don't take it away from the champ sort of deal. But it also was sort of the beginning of the Sean Strickland can't get a finish narrative to save his life, you know? So that's where I think height of Strickland's popularity. DDP was probably the most like unknown a championship contender could be. He's way more popular now than he was at the time of this fight. So at the time, people were like, why are they giving it to this South African guy that like hasn't, you know, the guy who beat Whitaker? What, you know, so that's how people were feeling at the time.
Yeah. So to kind of further break it down, Strickland got the better of DDP when it came to the striking. He outstroked him 173 to 137 in the fight, where DDP was all over him with the takedowns, which is what we thought was going to happen. He had 6 takedowns, and Strickland had 0. They've both fought since. DDP beat Izzy like very impressively with his rear naked choke there in the 4th round, and I think he looked very good against Izzy, although it's the best Izzy's looked in his last few fights, in my opinion. I just think it's gonna be more of the same. I think we're probably gonna see a 5-round banger. I don't think we're gonna see a finish unless it's from DDP's end. I'm gonna follow the Strickland can't finish narrative. I personally thought when Strickland beat Paulo Costa, I was immediately like, okay, fine, give him the rematch. I don't think that beating Paulo Costa is like makes him deserving of the rematch. I just think it made sense when it happened, and then Dana kind of agreed with it, and then ever since they've rolled with it. This isn't the fight to make. It's very obviously like DDP versus Khamzat is what we want to see and what's like deserved to be seen.
Right.
So that's like pretty solidified at this point that that's going to be whoever wins this match is going to be fighting Khamzat. I hope it's DDP because I think DDP versus Khamzat is a much more entertaining fight than Strickland versus Khamzat. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of takedowns. I think it's going to be relentless pressure. I think it's going to be a bunch of unpredictable strikes. And then DDP is going to get his hand raised at the end of it.
Yeah, to sort of just put it into the mindset of the time is that Strickland beat Costa as the #1 contender, coming
Correct.
off of a fight that people felt like he should have won in a split decision when he was champion, like he was robbed. So those narratives were sort of floating around at the time. And this was all happening after Khamzat had just beaten Kamaru Usman, who wasn't even a middleweight. He was a welterweight.
Correct.
And so in that, and then Khamzat also, hasn't been fighting that much, a lot of inactivity. Like, can he even fight in the United States because of his relationship with Kurt Kadarov, all that stuff. So from the UFC's perspective, I understand why they made the fight, but you're right. Like, it's not the fight to make. Khamzat's the clear choice for a while now to fight for a title, but Strickland was deserving just on that merit alone. And, that being said, at the time of watching the fight, by the way, our Mike Owens, who works for us, he just put out a little breakdown talk. If you've stayed and watched this long, a little breakdown on Inside Picks where he talks about the previous fight and why he felt like DDP actually did win the fight. And then he breaks this fight down a little bit. I'm not as smart as Mike when it comes to breaking fights down, so I have a much different perspective on all of this. I just think that it comes down to, does volume outweigh damage, right? Does damage outweigh volume? That's because that's what happened in the first fight. DDP had the much more impactful moments of, cutting Sean Strickland's forehead open with that awesome God of War image that we got of Strickland with the blood coming down his face. But then Strickland just kept peppering him like Nick Diaz style with his jab, and then DDP had bruises all over his face. So it's like, okay, how do you measure that, right? Well, it's takedowns, it's control, ground control, it's who's winning in the clinch exchanges, all that stuff. And I just think there's a clear advantage here for Dricus Du Plessis in terms of physicality. The dude is an absolute beast. He could probably fight at 205 if he wanted to tomorrow, or like the day after he fights. He's probably going to balloon up to like 225, 230.
Yeah.
I would consider a submission here. By the way, Tatiana Suarez plus 240 by submission, just in case.
Pretty solid.
DDP by submission is a plus 500, by TKO plus 350. I know it sounds crazy, man. I'm feeling finish for DDP in this fight.
I agree with you. I think that's what if there's a finish, it's on DDP's end.
Yeah. And I'm kind of thinking how do you do the double chance? God damn it. I have it here somewhere.
I'd have to pull it
Okay,
up.
DDP by KO, TKO, or submission is a plus 215. So by a finish is a plus 215.
That's a pretty solid bet. I think that DDP gets a lot of the Merab hate for people think he goes to decision a lot just because of the way he fights.
Yeah.
He never goes to decision. He's only gone to decision twice.
He's an exciting fighter, dude. He's
got 20 finishes and 22 wins.
And I don't think he's afraid of Strickland's power. You know what I mean? I don't think that he's afraid of losing on points for sure, because Strickland's so good at turning fights into a sparring match with his jabbing and controlling the pace with his Philly, just controlling the distance, all that stuff. But DDP, man, he's not afraid of Strickland's power. He's going to get in there and he's going to make it ugly. And I think that's when he makes it real. That's when he really succeeds. And I could see him getting this to the ground and pounding his way to a win. So I think plus 210. Sorry, what was it? Plus.
I think you said plus 210 for the TKO or sub.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, no, I like that.
So
awesome.
So long as Strickland doesn't have a staph infection and this fight isn't called off. But if he does, and he's been taking antibiotics, he could just gas even earlier. So
yeah.
But it's good. It's a good fight.
No, this will be a solid fight, and it really is. The co-main and the main will be pretty decent fights. Co-main less so because it could just go straight to decision. But no, we got a decent card on our hands. We got a good finishing of the card. But no, anyways, that's the end of Insider Betting. We got another episode coming next week. I think for the next 10 weeks we got UFC straight. So
we're eating good.
Yeah, if you haven't already, comment, subscribe. if you're going to be watching the fight and you're watching it by yourself like a loser and you need a friend to watch it with, Cody Talks Inside Fighting is going live Saturday night, so you can join for a little watch party. I'd highly recommend. I had a blast in there last week. Go talk some shit, do whatever you want. Next week, we got Jared Cannonier taking on Gregory Rodriguez. So two vets, let's say.
Yeah.
On the much older side of that. But anyway, maybe some decent fights next week. We'll talk about that next week. Yusuf Zalal, who I saw in Edmonton, is going to be fighting. He's fighting Calvin Kattar, who's buddies with Mike Cohen's media, who's part of the Inside Fighting family. So anyway, we got some exciting fights. We'll break it all down next week. And anything else to add, Jesse?
No, that's it. But I'm just realizing right now this fight is going to be at like the main card's going to be starting at like 2 p.m. in Australia. That's weird because they're like 17 hours ahead of us or something. So
they're doing it in U.S. time.
Yeah, they're going to be starting at a weird time over there. So who knows? I'm not sure who that favors or not, but no, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm just happy that we can move on from the DDP Strickland storyline. I hope we don't have like a split decision Strickland to win, and then we got to do like a whole trilogy. That's what I hope doesn't happen. Yeah,
that'd be a shame.
Yeah. Anyways,
it's been a pleasure, brother. We'll talk next week.
Peace.